Hello, I'm Michael,
I'm Radek,
and this is The Podcast.
a sounding board for interesting ideas and insights. We discuss books we read and want to share with you,
As well as technology and productivity, which is what we do by day, working on our app, Nozbe.
or whatever else comes to mind.
Okay, and as we promised, today we're back to talking about a book.
A book called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. You might know Cal Newport from the book Deep Work, which we've discussed multiple times on the show. It's been a great source of inspiration.
Yeah, and this book is actually the earlier book. It's the book before the Deep Work, right?
Yeah.
And once you've read it, it makes total sense because he really talks about deep work already in this book, and then he dives deeper into deep work in the Deep Work.
Yeah, I don't remember him using the phrase deep work. Maybe you do. I've actually read this book a long time ago, but by the way, we've mentioned also this on the show, but this is why if you're reading an insightful book, you really should take notes, because I've taken notes, and it's been like 2 years ago that I've read this book, and I'm reading my notes and everything becomes clear in my mind again. So I don't remember him talking specifically about deep work, but he mentioned deliberate practice, and
yes,
at the
he did.
time, yeah, I didn't fully understand it yet, but it seeded the idea in my mind. So when I later read Peak, it all became like very clear, and I already had it like primed in my mind. So yeah.
Again, pro tip: we talked about Peak in the past episodes of the podcast. We'll link to them in the show notes, and we recommend re-listening to them because, as I mentioned before, re-listening to our old episodes actually is pretty fun, and we're not. Yeah, I mean, we are pretty. We have a pretty good discussions there, so it's worth getting to that.
Yeah, I should try that sometimes. Like there's some topics that I became interested in again, and I was just thinking recently, like, hey, we've discussed this before. Maybe my past me knew about it more than I know now, because maybe I forgot about some of this stuff. It didn't solidify just yet. I have to re-listen to you and myself and relearn that stuff.
Yeah, and another thing that what you mentioned is really smart. Like when I was reading this book now, because I was reading this book like 2 weeks ago, So Good They Can't Ignore You. For me, it was easier because the concepts, like the deep work, the deliberate practice, I already knew them. So, like, this is the thing, the chicken and egg problem, right? Like, you listen to something, you don't know it, so you just ignore it, or like, it's there in the back of your head. But when it's a concept that then it reconnects with the book from the concept and whatnot. So for me, reading this book after deliberate practice and deep work, like, consolidated the ideas together, like made them together.
It's really funny that you should say that, because one of the books I've read about a year ago, and a book I've never really compiled and published my notes for, is a book that's literally called How to Read a Book. And and it's kind of embarrassing that for this book I haven't done what it told me to do. But one of the things it told me to do, and I haven't yet really implemented, but I should, is if you're trying to read to learn, then it's a good idea to first read check out the whole kind of structure of the book, like read the table of contents, and like read the beginnings of a few chapters, like the most important ones. And the idea is that you spend a bit more time doing that, but you prime yourself to understand this book, because is what you're saying. If you've never read a book, then you're trying to understand the concept at the same time as you're trying to understand the book. And if you already have it if you already know what it's about and like what the core things are, then you're just like filling in the gaps by actually reading it.
Yeah, completely. All right. So where do we start?
We start with the idea of following your passion.
Okay, so there is a disclaimer there. I am an author of a book called It's All About Passion. I've written the book when I was 3 years ago, and I published it for free on my blog, so you can get it now if you want to. So we will link, of course, to this book in the show notes. You can also get it on Amazon. So and when I was reading like the first chapter of this book, like and the advice on passion and stuff, and I was like, Okay, let's read on and see how this actually compiles or does not compile, or just is completely against what I wrote in my book. But I'm going to prove to you that what I wrote makes sense, but I should have highlighted and that I was on the right track writing my book. But I just didn't realize some of the things that this book.
All right, but we are getting ahead of ourselves. So let me explain that.
Yes, we are.
Now, to be honest, I have not read your book. Sorry. So I don't. Yeah, it was a long time ago, and
You're fired.
I forgot to since. Anyway, there's this like very strong idea in our culture. This like very strong meme, and I know especially in the world of technology, this idea of following your passion, that you gotta follow your passion, and the book argues that at least taken on its face value, it's just a terrible advice, and it has to be like it cannot be taken as it is, as just following your passion, which is like, for me, when I was reading it, it was kind of a tough pill to swallow, because I am one of those people in the tech world who is pretty passionate about my work, and I've always been, and it's pretty natural to me to think of my work this way, that I'm doing this because I really enjoy it. It's really fun. I'm quite passionate about building stuff and the intellectual simulation of programming and whatnot. So when you have all of the Steve Jobses and whoever else talking about passion, it just made perfect sense to me. But here's the problem. The idea of following your passion as a career advice presumes that people have a pre-existing passion. That people have something they're passionate about that is discovered or ready to be discovered and matched to a viable job, something they could actually do and get paid for. And the thing is that most people don't. The vast majority of people don't. And then they try to follow that advice, and it just leaves them confused and unhappy, because they try to do what everybody like wants you to do. Like, hey, I want to be passionate about my job, but they start working somewhere and they're not that good at it, and they can't be passionate about that. And so they start hopping from one place to another, and they never find something they're passionate about. The reality is that most jobs at the start of one's career just aren't that amazing, like just aren't that good, and are hard to be passionate about. And it made people wonder if they found their true calling. And, it makes them want to switch between jobs and never stick to one thing. But what makes a job great are traits like creativity, impact, control. Like you need to feel like the word is engaging intellectually. So creativity, impact. So, if you're doing something that you believe matters, then you're going to feel much better about this, and control. So if you feel like you're not in control of what you're doing, then it's not very much fun if you're just like carrying out someone else's commands and you don't really feel like it, and it's not really that interesting, right? And if you get good at something and find a job that has these 3 traits, then passion follows. Like if you have those things, then you can become passionate about it. It's not the other way around, right? It's like because those are rare traits, then you're unlikely to just find a job that has it at the very beginning if you're just starting out, right? Like you have to have something to offer. You have to be so good they can't ignore you.
Exactly. So when I'm just right now, I was just reviewing my brilliant book. It's all about passion. And that was that. I mean, I'm writing in this book how I discovered the passions, but not how I followed them. So the idea is like, even in the introduction, what I write is that I have found my curiosity for computers, because I was always into computers, languages, which we talked about before, and the internet, which for me was great, and traveling. And then I realized that I can do anything from anywhere, right? And hello, almost 20 years later, I'm running a company which is completely no office, completely remotely, works completely remotely, and we are serving customers from all over the world. So like I'm saying that I discovered some. So I would say the advice should be, I think, follow your curiosity, but not follow your passion. Because if you're curious for something and you start, building up your skills, which we'll talk later, then you will find a passion. But don't follow the passion because you don't have it. Like when I was young, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. When I was there in this college, which I mentioned in the introduction of my book, I had no clue what to do with my life. I was studying business in the business school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I chose studying business and management because I had no other idea what to study.
Follow your curiosity is a very interesting phrasing, because when I think about me and my path, it's just that. I was curious. I wanted to learn more.
Right.
Now, the thing about passion is, I was fortunate enough that by the time I finished school, I already had valuable skills. But
Exactly.
that's rare. That almost never happens. But because of that, I never had to go through a job that was not so great to acquire those skills, because I was lucky enough to stumble upon something that, engaged my curiosity very early on in life. So I had many years while I was in school, which I was not passionate about, let me tell you that. And precisely because of that, if I got home and could spend a couple of hours playing around with programming, that was fun, right? And at the beginning, I didn't know, I didn't know anything. I didn't have valuable skills. The point is that while my case is very rare, that my first job is a really good one. It took a tremendous amount of work and practice to get to that point. And I like how you're saying follow your curiosity, because it doesn't presume that you are passionate about something and that you're good at it. It presumes that, like, the thing about curiosity is not knowing and wanting to know. It's not being excited about something like because it's a thing you like doing. It's like, that's really interesting. I want to learn more. So it's a much better phrasing, because it presumes that there's more work to be done. And the book phrases it in terms of developing a craftsman mindset, which is that, again, you have to get good at something before you can expect good work. But the craftsman mindset is, it takes time, but you work at it, you learn, you continue doing deliberate practice, link in the show notes, and eventually you do get good at it.
So good.
Yeah.
They can't ignore you.
Exactly. So the basic premise of the argument is super, super obvious after you hear it, but wasn't so obvious to me before. So I'll rephrase it once again. Because the traits that make great jobs great are rare, and most jobs don't have them, laws of supply demand that in order to have a job with those traits, you must have something rare and valuable in return, right? You must be so good they can't ignore you. Because it's like a lot of people, like there's a number of these like generic sort of passions, like interesting things that a lot of people sort of want to do, like be an actor or, be a novelist, write or make music. Like a lot of people, young people are like, I'm pretty passionate about music or writing, but what does it mean? Like how useful is that if you can't actually do it very well? And if you don't have the mindset necessary to persist in it long enough, working on it, and still like find enjoyment in it to be able to persist for so long until you actually get so good at it, that you can do it and you can make a living out of it, and you can feel pretty passionate about it because the grunt work is behind you. But it takes work.
Yeah, that's the another thing that, it's hard to. I mean, this is why follow your passion is such a bad advice, because piece of advice, because to follow your passion means it's a shortcut. You will find your passion and then you'll be successful. Thank you very much. But what Cal Newport is arguing, and what we have actually proven in our lifetime already, it's that you have to do the work. You have to get the skills. If you don't get the skills, you will not find your passion, and then you won't be passionate about what you're doing, and then you won't be successful. So it's the other way around, but it's not sexy, because you have to first get the skills. So you have to first be curious about something, then get the skills, and then the passion will follow. It's not a shortcut.
Yeah, now that we're talking about it, I see a parallel to Stoicism. Now that's something I did not see before. But think about it. Like, the whole premise of and a very important point of Stoicism is that life isn't always the best version of life you can achieve. Like, you can't expect to be like at your most happiest, most sort of high energy, joyful self at all times. And trying to do so is only going to drive you to be unhappy and miserable, because it's unrealistic. And an important idea in Stoicism is to find tranquility, this state which is a positive emotional state. But it's not like you're super happy. It's like you don't experience negative emotions. It means that you're fine. You feel okay. Not like super great, just okay. And you're okay with the fact that that like a lot of sort of stoical, like hardcore stoical techniques are about making yourself sort of artificially inflict like small amounts of sort of psychological pain by, for example, considering how your life could be worse, or by rejecting. Temporarily rejecting some good things that you have in life, so that you condition yourself to really appreciate life and all the good things in life. And I see a parallel to that here, which is that you're unlikely to achieve like great work you can be passionate about from the start. But if you have this stoical view on life, then it's not really a problem, because it's not like it's a terrible thing that you have to, sort of go through blood and sweat for 10 years until you can be happy. It's like it's a process to get to the great work you can be passionate about, but the process itself is also not necessarily going to be that bad if you think about it in the right way. If you're okay with the fact that you have to sort of invest your time, and also sort of invest psychologically, emotionally, to get where you really want to be.
And you think, and especially I think in schools and the whole education system is because it's structured around the Industrial Revolution. They expect us at some point to know and to decide what we want to do in life and what we are passionate about, right? And for me, this was like the most confusing thing ever, because, and especially, I was a straight A student. I was good at everything. I was really good at everything. So for a person like this, like the headmaster of my high school said, he's not interested in straight A students. He wants people who are exceptional at one thing, and because then they can go to the Olympics or whatever, like this kind of Olympics for high schools, and then get some awards for the school. And I wasn't like that. I was just good at everything, but I wasn't exceptional at anything. And I was miserable because I didn't know what, I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a lawyer, or maybe I wanted. I didn't know. Like, I didn't know who I wanted to be or what I wanted to be. And that's why when it was time to make a decision, to study, I didn't choose to study in the technical university, because I thought I'm not that much into maths as I think I am. I'm good at this, but I might be miserable later just to be just studying maths. So I chose the broadest thing ever, that's business management, and then I can just study business, study many different industries, and maybe I'll find something out. And I did eventually with the internet and everything else, and my thing for computers, and then my skill set to program, to be able to program, and the first version of Nozbe. I mean, the first version of many other startups that I built before I managed to succeed with Nozbe. And all these things were just small skill sets that was like building up like a Lego, puzzle, Lego pieces together to have this person that I am right now and this passion that I have now, right now for this, what I'm doing right now. And yes, now I'm like every day I'm like at work, and I'm like, I can't believe they're paying me for this, right?
Yeah, exactly. From our perspective, it's so easy to say without further context and without further nuance to be like, it's all about passion. But it's like, yeah, but it's easy for you to say, right?
Exactly.
So it's like without that nuance and that context, it might not be super useful for anyone. Yeah, but as for school, I totally see that. Like most of my peers are in university right now, nearing the end of it, that is. And a few of my friends from high school, found and picked something for their studies that they're really happy with. And in, year 4 or something, they're like, I want to keep doing that. And a lot of people are sort of getting by, but are kind of miserable because they haven't found it. And, they haven't found the thing for themselves, and they're not in the mindset to sort of improve some skill so that they can get there. And when getting into middle school and high school, you have to pick sort of semi-specialization. For a lot of people, that was not very good because I knew more or less, not exactly, but more or less what I wanted, but a lot of people didn't, right? And then they picked some path because it sounded like a good idea, and then they sort of felt forced to continue with it, and then maybe pick a university based on it, and now they are sort of miserable because they've locked themselves into a path. And in school, there was no enough space for exploration. That's one thing. And another thing, and we've talked about it, is school is structured in a way to kill your curiosity. And curiosity is exactly what you need to find something really great to become passionate about over time, and something that you can spend countless hundreds and thousands of hours working on until you get good at it and not feel miserable during the process.
Yeah, that's why changing this, restructuring it as follow your curiosity, I think it's a good piece of advice and a good starting point. But then, follow your curiosity, build up your skill set, and then the passion will follow.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that I'm, browsing through my book about passion, I realized that I'm actually able to edit the book in such a way that it's more compatible with the notion from Cal Newport's book. Because once I look at all the chapters and the 7 passions I discovered, which I say in this book, are exactly these discoveries. Discoveries I made when I was doing something, right? So the first one is passion for the money. And
wow,
it's like this
without context, it sounds pretty bad.
It's really bad, but it's like this Maslow thing, this Maslow pyramid of needs and stuff. And passion for the money, it's where I burned in the first times when I was building my internet companies, because the money was for me the most important thing. I wanted to get rich, and the passion for the money turned into something different, a passion to be able to collect money, but as a means to build something great, and not as a means to get rich. So for me, this was I had the wrong passion for the money in the very beginning of my journey, because I was this young guy that just wanted to get rich quickly and be famous, money and the fame and stuff. And then later, passion for the solution. So this idea that I wanted to scratch my own itch. I wanted to get organized. So I was searching for a solution. And again, curiosity, searching. I was investigating. I didn't build Nozbe in the very beginning. First, I was trying to use Microsoft Outlook. Really, I did.
It's pretty bad.
No, yeah, very bad. But then I was trying different tools at that time. It was 2005. I was trying different tools. So I was really investigating. I was curious. I was trying to build something. And then because of that, finding the solution became my obsession. I wanted to really be more organized. And I knew my problem was that I wasn't a very well organized person by definition. Like I could see my wife, that she was, very well structured. She knew like how to approach things. I didn't have that. I had to learn
All
that.
right, I'm going to stop you here. Like, here's the key thing to me about productivity and people who talk about productivity and write about productivity. Those are the people that are bad at it, and that's a good thing. Like if someone is naturally like perfectly organized, they never have a problem to get to work and get stuff done, they don't have any insights to share. And like this is me. Like without all the things we've talked about and the things that I've been doing for enough that I even forgot that I do this, but like I'm naturally like a completely disorganized person. Like naturally, I'm a complete mess. That's exactly why I started playing with it, exploring different ideas, reading up about it, because without all of those systems in place and these ways to sort of manage it, I'm useless.
That's why how you become a magic spreadsheet guru. Because you need the freaking magic spreadsheet,
but it's true.
to actually make it work. And exactly. So you see, but that's the thing. And later, the next passion I'm talking about is passion for the product. Like once I started, building this home baked solution for myself, I started being passionate for the product because I started, looking at the product, looking at, I can make it better, like make the button here, like you start. But again, it's curiosity, it's skill set, because I had to learn the new JavaScript, new technologies. Like it was this moment of Web 2.0 or whatever. I had to learn lots of new things. I had really, before I started building Nozbe, the only thing I would use JavaScript for was like counters or things like that I would just, plug into some websites. I would never use JavaScript for anything. But then when I started building Nozbe, I had to learn completely new skill set to really be able to build to ship the first version of the product. But again, I became passionate because I was working on the skill set, because I was curious. I was literally, I think I mentioned that already, but I was literally viewing the source code of some other web apps to just see how they built it, how this magic works, what are they doing to make it work, right? And I was then, building my own prototypes and things. So again, you see here the pattern repeats itself. You're curious, you start building, working hours and building the skill set, and then you start being passionate about it, then it really matters.
It's so true. In school, it just doesn't work like that. You're given an assignment and you're not explained why you should care, and so you don't, and you don't want to learn it, and so you don't, and you might cram it, but you're not going to remember anything. And like it's amazing to me how fast or how slow I can learn depending on context. If I didn't care about something in school, I would be so horrible at learning anything. But I want to understand something when programming. Like there's something that I'm like, I wonder how do you do this? You get a need or a perceived need, right? You get curious. You want to learn it just for the sake of it, it's just intrinsic motivation, no external reward. And when you want it, it's like, it's amazing how fast we can absorb information. And again, if we can absorb, if we can learn fast, then we can get so good they can't ignore you.
Yeah, and coming back to you, actually, I still remember this moment when you sent me the email. We talked about this story before on this podcast, but when you sent me the email that you want me to endorse your app, and I did, and it didn't matter that much, but anyway, I did it. But what I liked was like, I saw your app, I got it, I used it, I liked it, but then I saw the website of your app, and I was like, who did this for you? I mean, it's really good, but you did it. So I was like, and in English copyright, I mean, the copywriting, the copy of the site was really good. So I was, wow. And then we asked you for a favor to help us out with a thing for Nozbe, and you did it. And then we started working together. And again, you were so good, we couldn't ignore you. And you were so young at that time. I mean, you're still so young, but you were very young back then. Like it just struck me right now when you said it to me, because you just told me that your friends are already finishing college, and I remember us talking about it, whether you should go to college or not.
Yeah,
and we had these discussions before.
We did.
So again, you are a great testament for this book. You were so good that I couldn't ignore you, and I didn't ignore you, and now we are here.
Oh yeah, but there was, thousands of hours spent building stuff, programming before that.
Exactly. I mean, we just discussed this. Yeah. Like when you started, when you decided to learn English, it's not like you magically absorbed English. No, you dedicated like half a year to learning, 2,000 or 3,000 words or whatever. Like you had the whole system, elaborated how to learn it. So, and again, we'll link to the show in the show notes to this and to this discussion and to discussion about the Stoics and everything. But that's the thing. You had to push through. You had to do the work. So there was no shortcut.
No,
it's not like somebody injected English into you, or somebody injected, Mac and iOS development to you. No, it was you, on your old small, Mac Mini, trying to, crank some stuff and just making it work. Right?
It's true. Yeah, and one of the greatest advantages that I had with programming at this time of age is, I started with like very limited resources. Like I had no money, I had no one to teach me, but all of this stuff was online, right? It was available for anyone who wanted to look for it, and it just like 10 years earlier it would be much more difficult, and 10 years later it's even easier. Like it's not just programming. Like there are now so incredibly many resources about so many different topics available online for free or for very little money, for anyone who wants to learn it. Now, there are some paths in life that if you want to become a lawyer or a doctor or a aerospace engineer, then it might be a bit more difficult. But even there, before you go to the right university that you have to go through, you can still absorb so much stuff online, and it just gets better. Like programming 10 years ago was there just wasn't as much stuff online. There was still a ton, but not as much as today. And because it's programming, like programmers naturally put that stuff online. But now it's even better. So it doesn't matter that much anymore what exactly you want to try to do and what you're curious about. You can find that stuff if you want to, if you care.
Yeah, just as I mentioned, I had to view the source code, the source of the websites that I was, the web apps that I was trying to learn from, because there were no tutorials for that, because it was so fresh. Yeah. And there is one idea that it's also in the book, and I just saw it in somebody else's notes, and I want to get to them because it makes perfect sense now. Some people think that people have this master plan for their life. Mm-hmm. They know like they're going to be this and this, and then they just go back from there, right? So this Stephen Covey calls it begin with the end in mind, which sounds like a nice advice and reasonable advice. You have to have an end in mind, and then you work backwards how to get there. And it's in many circumstances it makes sense, but usually, especially for career, it doesn't, because normally what works really is fake it until you make it approach. Like you have to first do something, you learn from that, and then you see more, and then based on what you see more, you decide on your next course or how to change the course for the next thing, and then you learn the next thing, and this is how word actually works. I mean, this is how it worked for me. Like 10 years ago, I didn't know what Nozbe will be. Like I didn't know. I was starting this thing. I wanted to help some people on the internet get organized and maybe earn something in the process and learn something new. And then fast forward, I have this company. Now we're doing, new things because what we've learned over the past 10 years and how we're going to, move Nozbe forward into the next decade. So, but again, it's because we know what we know now. It's not like I had this master plan, 10 years before, and we're just, getting it done. So really, that's why this ties back to the curiosity thing. Mm-hmm. You have to be curious, learn new things, and get curious and course correct. You have to do what we also discussed on the show: review what you've done, review where you want to go. It's the constant process. Is this journey is the ultimate destination thing, and not that there is a destination, and you will be happy when you get there.
I truly believe that it's not just a cliche. Like the process, the journey is far more fascinating, because even still, like, I have no idea what I'm going to do in life when I grow up. Like, who knows? But I'm
Exactly.
pretty happy with the process, right? I'm pretty happy with what I've been doing the past few years and what I see in just the nearest future that I see ahead of me. And it's like that, like what you refer to. I'll shed a bit more light on it. Like the idea was that in science or in engineering, like, breakthroughs almost never actually happen. Breakthroughs in the sense that you make something completely new. Like it's always just one hop ahead of what's already on the cutting edge, right?
Exactly.
And it just like people who don't do this stuff, like, don't realize it. Like people tend to idealize, even nerds tend to idealize, scientists and engineers as sort of famous geniuses. And even when they were, it still was just one hop ahead of, the adjacent possible, as he called it in the book. Like it was already like seeing what is available, then you see what's next. And I really think it's like that. Like so far, it's been like that for me in life. And I think the process of reviewing every week, every quarter, every year, doing this, having these long moments of reflection with yourself, of reviewing, hey, what have I done the past week or the past quarter or the past year, and what I want to achieve next is necessary and crucial for that, because I don't have the map, but with this I have a compass, right?
Exactly.
I go forward, I see what happens, but I have a moments where I sort of look at my compass, right? I review what happened and I correct the course. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a metaphor from Seth Godin. I just recalled it, but it's pretty powerful for me. Like, you're never going to have a full idea of what is going to happen. If you think you have a master plan for life, things will change. So it's a much better idea to just have a process for correcting the course, so that you, even if you don't go in a straight line, you inch closer and closer to what you want to do next.
Yeah, there was a picture. I remember there was a picture of on the internet, like one of the memes, that the programmer wants to get from A to B, and there's a straight line. Mm-hmm. And then real life was like, valleys, bridges, and everything in between to get to the B point, right?
Story of my life. Just today we were trying to estimate the time needed for some programming tasks. But we got a bit smarter, and to our best estimates, we just added 50%. And I'm pretty sure we should just double it, because that's just the story of every programmer's life. You think you have a picture, you have a master plan of how to achieve something, but then you dig into it, and it turns out it's more complicated than that. And you have to go to the valley, and then it's just not a straight line. It's always harder.
And then there's a cliff. You have to build a bridge, and then
exactly.
it's. Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. So really, like, it's really rarely that there is a master plan. It's like the Cal Newport also refers to this famous speech by Steve Jobs, the Stanford commencement address, where he explains the follow the passion thing. I mean, that to find what you love in life. And And I think he was a little bit misunderstood again. That you don't, I mean, to find what you love, you have to work on it to really find what you love. Again, just what we discussed today in the very beginning of the show. But also in the same commencement address, Steve Jobs is talking about connecting the dots. And he says explicitly, it's impossible to connect them looking forward. You can only connect them looking back.
Yeah.
Because then you have the compass, and then the map creates itself when you have the compass, but you don't have a map, just like you said. So he says that you just follow the compass, but there is no map. So talking about journeys and the journey is the ultimate destination. I really enjoy following other people's journeys, and I like from time to time listen to biographies or read biographies. And the one I would recommend is the Richard Branson's Finding My Virginity, which is his new biography. It's a long one, 16 hours. Listen, but I really like it. It was fun to follow his steps.